Are you lost in the woods late at night? Are you just a little guy in a big world? Are your arms way too short? Well, that sucks. Here's a video about speedrunning in Monster Hunter. Simply speaking, there are three main categories. TA, Freestyle, any percent, TA Wiki. Freestyle is the anything goes category. Heroics, traps, environment, maxed out RNG components. Think curious crafting and Sunbreak. If it's at all possible, it's fair game. TA, short for time attack, is a more restricted rule set. TA Wiki is the exact same rule set, but in Asia. Let's go over Sunbreak's rules. Clear throat. No, don't read that out loud, just do it. Hunt and slay only, solo only, no pets or NPCs, no flash bombs, no sonic bombs, no poisoned, drugged, etc. meat, no poison smoke bombs, no traps, no bishaten fruit, no bombs, no supply items, no heroics or adrenaline, fortify cannot be procced, no beetles, puppet spider, marionette spider, trap bugs, lantern bugs, gust crabs, aurora turtles, starburst bugs, no fighting while wyvern riding, no restocking, no inquest equipment change, entire HUD and all damage must be visible, language must be Japanese, English or Chinese, no curious crafting, for very good charms, should have proof of legitimately obtaining it, absolutely no mods, and for anomaly quests specifically, single target, 25 minutes only, and so on. As a general rule of thumb, TA Wiki is roughly the 1v1 Final Destination 4-stock 8-minute no items of Monster Hunter. Both TA and Freestyle are bite-sized speedruns, focusing on only one singular quest. Any percent is different. It and the categories related to it aim to beat the whole game instead of just an individual quest. Typically speaking, Freestyle is more reset heavy and has a larger focus on scripting. TA Wiki is more focused on monster knowledge and execution, and full game categories such as any percent rely on consistency more than any of the other rule sets. Besides TA Wiki, FS and full game, there's a few subcategories that are usually based off of TA Wiki or full game ones, like simple rules, no RNG, village percent, base game hard boss percent. I don't know how it is for you, but whenever I watch someone beat any quest at a seemingly impossibly fast pace, I always feel motivated and inspired to go do it myself. But before we go there, we need to speak about how we speak. I've said Freestyle is more reset heavy and has a larger focus on scripting earlier, but what does scripting actually mean? Let's look at an example. This is Special Investigation Diablos. The set used here is an extremely element-heavy Berserk setup, so the first thing done is swapping to the scroll that turns Berserk online. Then it's all about getting into the arena ASAP, grabbing the rainbow bird on the way. The Diablos matchup is very EBC heavy, and 3 wire bugs are necessary to use it constantly and consistently, so the arena one is grabbed instantly. Then comes a demon powder while approaching to buff the dogs primarily. The first move is drawing to sword, immediately followed by a morph to restore some gauge and greet some damage. Diablos will roar, which is met with an EBC. Double slash serves as a follow-up to it, as it allows a 180-degree turn. Between the early greet, the EBC and the double slash, Diablos will enrage and roar again, which is met with another EBC. If the positioning and angle on the engage roar EBC is perfect, double slash will hit the belly once, and you can greet an overhead slash before the second counter. On the set that's used here, and on this quest, this interaction is always the same. We can force this exact chain of events to happen, and because we can do that, we call it a script. Let's look at another example. This run uses adrenaline. Typically speaking, speedruns that opt for either heroics or adren want monsters to move as little as possible. Even if you only ever play casually, you probably know some options for this. Flash bombs or ports for flyers like Rathalos, sonic bombs for almost exclusively Diablos, shock and pitfall traps for a wide variety of monsters, and naturally part breaks, which generate topples or flinches. At this point in this run, I knew that Gore's wing was one hit away from breaking. When his wings are broken, he will fall over, or topple, and give an extra opening. Playing so that these things can happen is also referred to as script. Generally, a script is any gameplay sequence that is producing a desired result reproducibly. In the Diablos example, these can just be the opener, typically the first 30-ish seconds of a hunt, or they can last throughout most, if not the entirety, of a hunt. Scripting is a skill you can pick up and learn, much like many other things, either by theory or practice, or some combination of those approaches. The theoretical approach aims to math out in advance how much damage you'll deal, then math out options through part break thresholds and general environmental variables, like rocks or endemic life, items such as traps and bombs, then test and adjust and order things until you arrive at the desired result before putting in the legwork to practice the script. Threshold info is often found on external sites such as Kiranico, monsterhunterwiki.org, or Robomechi's tools such as the Discord bot or the websites. The practical approach leans more towards hunting a monster a few times and learning to intuit when certain things like part breaks or staggers will happen, and adjusting between attempts. Both approaches will eventually settle on a script, practice the execution, and adjust as needed. In the process of practicing, improving, and executing a script, things can go south for unexpected reasons or mishaps. When that happens, it's called breaking the script. Breaking a script can happen because you deal too much damage to a certain part, get a part break while the monster is already toppled, get a flinch or part break during an uninterruptible animation, getting a KO at an unfortunate time, or interrupting a monster's attacking sequence you needed to actually happen. The premier difference between playing casually and speedrunning is the ability to script and execute and adapt based on and around that script. The other commonly used terms in the speedrunner TM lingo are the rule sets, mostly TA and FS, skill and attack abbreviations like WEX, weakness exploit, or ZSD, zero-sum discharge, mechanical things such as hyper armor, topples, staggers, or game-specific things like clagger. Another skill that's rarely talked about is menuing. For every legitimate run you see, you can easily assume dozens, if not hundreds, of failed attempts that preceded it. Speedrunning is where the menu hunter moniker really shines through. Go to the quest board, pick the quest, do the pre-prep, game dependent, load into the quest, fast travel, abort the quest, do it again.
A special quest has been added.
Faster.
There's a special quest for you. I pray for your good fortune.
And faster.
A special quest has been added. If anyone can handle this, it's you.
And faster. And you get the idea. It's a very small improvement in terms of time spent on a per attempt basis, but given that runs can take hundreds of attempts to get the time you're after, it adds up fast. Sometimes you want to take it slower too. Most single quest rule sets require showing the set you used while being in quest, and ideally after the hunt itself, but before the quest end screen. Navigating there faster also means having more time to pause on every piece of equipment, which makes it easier for judges to verify and for viewers to copy if they are so inclined. Because of the repetitive, fast motions you will be doing, especially on controllers, I cannot recommend enough to properly warm up your hands and stretch them within reason beforehand. We're not quite doing Mario Brothers type inputs here, but it's better to be safe than to permanently fuck yourself up over a hobby. The menuing skill set encompasses being able to navigate to the correct options fast, but also memorizing where they are, how to get there from most other reasonable positions, and also importantly, when to take a rest, which inputs you struggle with, double up on a D-pad anyone, and how to mitigate them where avoidable. Much like menuing, resetting is fundamentally an easy thing to do. Open the menu, navigate to whichever option lets you abort the quest, and select it. While you do get faster at this from experience of menuing to it over and over and over, a much bigger part of resetting is recognizing when it is and isn't worth to reset. Sometimes you'll want to do it when you make a mistake. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes the monster just spawning in the wrong subspawn is enough to make you quit out. And sometimes it's not. Most of what we spoke about up until now was how to get into or back into the quest faster. Let's talk about how to actually beat it faster. And for that, we need to take a step back first. How are the meta sets determined? Beyond just throwing together what's obviously good, there's a whole bunch of averaging happening. Average uptimes on skills, average accuracy in actually hitting the good hit zones, average amount of time spent on non-combat things like healing or sharpening, average areas thought through, and so on. In speedrunning, however, things are different. We stop caring about what's average and things that are become more important. When does Agitator activate? When can I get heroics or adrenaline? How can I play into Counter-Strike or Ad Rush? Leading to certain choices like adrenaline, not rush, being speedrun exclusive. The meta is built upon consistency. Speedrunning is not. At least not in the same sense. Skills like Foray and Wilds might have a chance to shine in specific runs, if it lets the runner skip a certain attack or animation, or helps meeting an important threshold earlier, like an enrage or phase change, depending on when a presumably para is going to proc. Adrenaline can save on armor slots and move the low health big attack payoff on food instead, but contradicts skills like latent power or Counter-Strike, which in turn opens up other options such as Adrenaline Rush or Odogaron at the time of writing, theoretically. Besides the big obvious choices like Affinity and Crit Boost, almost no skill is ever included in sets just because it's good. There is intention behind sets and playstyles. Optimizing for a speedrun is different than optimizing for, say, a guide or general casual play, because there's significantly less player variables, but more options. Run-specific sets optimize along the script, runner preference, or interaction showcase, and mostly don't look at what's the uptime of Counter-Strike, and more at what do I need to extend this script or deal more damage during this time frame, where every variable is known and consistency is not needed, as the runner can just make it happen through the power of the aforementioned reset. On the flip side of this stands conversion rate. Sometimes a runner will opt for skills that don't traditionally increase damage output directly, in favor of skills like Flayer or Slugger. These skills are sometimes referred to as consistency skills, as they help convert good RNG into a completed run more consistently. Combinations like Evade Extender and Maxmite that seem, at best, questionable can turn out to be the correct choice for any given script. If it includes sequences that require dodging multiple times in a row, but otherwise doesn't dodge much at all. Flayer can help bridging gaps between individually scripted sequences. Slugger has use cases to smooth out freestyle sections and reduce reset points. Hellfire Cloak and Sunbreak is often a deliberate choice to gain an additional topple. Earplugs and resistances such as Tremor or Wind have proven themselves useful on more than one occasion in the past already, to enable punishes you otherwise wouldn't be able to get. Many more options and choices you wouldn't necessarily consider when playing or optimizing casually suddenly become very relevant considerations in speedrun scenarios and circumstances, depending on the individual runner's skill level, preferences, script and targets. The combination of all of this ultimately means that you don't even have to be particularly good at MH or your weapon of choice, although it certainly helps, to start speedrunning. All you need is some determination and the ability to learn consistency in how you work with and react to what's happening on screen. And what's happening on screen is often heavily influenced by RNG in speedrunning has many forms. Which area a monster spawns in, which subspawn a monster spawns on, where it's moving early on, what moves it's going to use in any given situation, non-target RNG like invader behavior or small monsters, for starters. Let's start with the bad news. Some of these you can't prevent or interact much with, asterisk. And now the good news. So far I've explained things that I'd largely classify as things that are part of a quest directly, things that happen outside or around a quest, and things that connect it to. There's a third category that we need to talk about, however. Things outside of the game. You things. One giant topic that won't be immediately apparent on your first or second run is mindset. Compare these two people. One of them is literally running, presumably as part of their routine. The other has made competitive, literally speedrunning, their career. Speedrunning as a hobby seems inherently competitive, but it doesn't have to be. But what does being competitive even mean? No, this is not a bit, we're doing this for real this time. Just look at the big screen, there's actually stuff there. This article suggests that, based on a study done on animals in 2015, the most competitive individuals are able to secure higher quality resources, and more of them. At the same time, however, it warns that any leaps from observation of animals to human competition psychology is speculative, so we can't read too much into this analysis, but that we can see analogs for this in human behavior as well. This article suggests 4 constituents: genetic, environmental, situational factors, and a history of competition. It goes on to explain that research suggests a genetic component to competitiveness, and uses children of explosive power elite athletes as an example. More broadly, this suggests that inherited factors like genetically stronger, more specialized legs in this example can lead to offspring further competing and developing in that field, i.e. sprinting. It also mentions situational factors, like a high-stakes job being a contributor to competitiveness. Based on these articles and some studies linked below, we could generally say that people lean more towards competitiveness if they're in less cooperative environments and situations, and when they derive a large part of their self-worth from the outside, through social standings, rankings, etc. The end effect, more competitors, less competition, by Stephen M. Garcia and Avishalom Tor, I hope I didn't butcher that, says that one study found that individuals trying to finish an easy quiz among the top 20% in terms of speed finished significantly faster if they believed they were competing in a pool of 10 rather than 100 other people, suggesting group size to be a major factor as well. The role of competitiveness in society finds that approximately half of their questioned individuals would prefer to overall earn less if it meant earning more than others. It's easy to come to the conclusion that being competitive is a thing of vanity, solely based on wanting to feel like we're something better than our peers. What's so cool about being competitive anyway? No, seriously. Healthy amounts of competition are fun, especially if you win. Winning things releases happy chemicals in the human brain and stimulates the brain's reward center. Healthy levels of competitiveness also enhance learning, can bring people together for a good cause, see GDQ, spark innovation, and increase efficiency and general effectiveness, and can improve your mood. It's functionally very similar to gambling, which is its own rabbit hole I hope I needn't explain to anyone, especially if any kind of financials are involved. Competitive hobbies can also become a replacement for social standing, social life in general, and take a priority over other responsibilities, akin to addiction. See gambling. Anxiety, depression, especially in continuous failure, stress, burnout, and developing an in-group, out-group line of thought are very possible downsides for picking up a competitive hobby. One study looking into fantasy football found the following. The more experience any given person has in the hobby, the less anxious they become about it, and the more it impacts their positive mood. Simultaneously, however, their self-reported problematic behaviors increased with increased engagement. Highly involved players generally felt more anxious and depressive, but also expected significantly greater positive moods. Financial involvement generally led to significantly more anxiety and depression. It also states, however, It has also confirmed and extended this work by demonstrating that fantasy football has a positive influence on players' positive mood, thereby supporting that the game can be beneficial for the well-being of its players. And this article concludes, both absolute well-being and relative position seem to matter to people. Our evidence indicates that positional concerns are extremely important, and that half of the respondents said they would prefer a world in which they have 50% less real income as long as they have high relative income. It generally seems that in a sufficiently competitive environment, proportionally strong people will eventually stop working towards their own goals and begin trying to hinder the progress of others, both of opponents and of their own teammates. On this background then, how can you prevent this relatively competitive hobby from consuming you negatively and from working towards hindering others more than working towards your own progress? Counteracting the negatives is possible, but it takes effort. One article on Psychology Today describes it as, healthy competitiveness includes wanting to improve and achieve personal goals. It involves pushing your limits within reason and enjoying the competition process. Healthy competitiveness often leads to personal growth, increased motivation, and a sense of accomplishment. It encourages good sportsmanship, fair play, respect for others, and resilience in facing challenges, and suggests that focusing on self-improvement, adjusting your perspective, actively engaging in fair play, managing stress, using a growth mindset, and understanding that while you can fail, you are not a failure. While another article stresses the importance of setting attainable goals and developing a routine before competing. How? Welcome to a step-by-step guide on how to not be a miserable dickhead while running. Watch others run and comment on them. See what you can learn from their approach, what you're doing better or worse. Give advice where it's welcome or asked, and make it a learning experience for yourself. And if you really, genuinely have nothing else to say, a simple GG can make a world of difference for both of you. Here, let's do it together. GG. Nice. Don't compare yourself to others. Neither negatively nor positively, and especially not if you're trying to garner a following with your runs. You can get lucky, but on average, you won't. And picking up running for fame and glory is just playing the lottery. Except even when you win, you're still broke. Instead, look at what others are doing differently. And again, always be open to learn. Fundamentally, speedrunning is about getting better and improving yourself. A word of warning: do not cheat. There's more nerds than runners, and there's a finite amount of time you could get away with it. You wouldn't want to end up in one of these. Take regular breaks, particularly when you get angry. Frustration and anger lead to mistakes, and you'll only get more upset. Touch grass, grow some plants. Most learning occurs when you're not actively engaged. I suggested earlier to give advice where it's needed, but it's also important to ask for advice when you need it. Most runners I've met have been more than happy to yap about scripts, share insights and ideas you might not have had yourself. Make friends, socialize. Watch your old runs. This is where you compare. You compare where you are now to where you were last run, last month, last year, and acknowledge how much better you've gotten and will continue to get. And after all that, the question remains: why run? People want to and do run for different reasons. Fame and glory, competition itself and the emotional rollercoaster associated with it. To give their advice more weight, out of spite, for the tension and relief of actually finishing a run. Personally speaking, I started running in Try, which was also my first MH. At the time, I found something in Monster Hunter I still can't put a finger on, and after finishing all there was to do, I didn't want to let the experience end just there. But also didn't have anything to chase anymore, except getting better. And over time, running has become a way to express something for me that no word or image or video could ever do justice.
For me, it was an inspired thing, like being inspired by other runners. Because I've always found people like Ruan, Bomb, Juicy, June, Ole, Titus, like those people to be really cool. So like to say that I'm in the same lane as them, like doing the speedrunning stuff. That was and still is a big reason today. It gives me an excuse, to edit the video. It is very enjoyable to showcase my sensational fashion.
The first time I tried to speedrun Monster Hunter was after I saw a run by Puni on YouTube. He did Valstrax with Switch Axe and I thought it was really cool. This was back in Base Rise and after seeing his script, I just copied what he did. I didn't understand the scripting decisions or any of the game mechanics. I just looked at what I saw on screen, monkey see, monkey do, right? And it was a fun experience, but I didn't do any more speedruns until the Sunbreak demo. Because when the Sunbreak demo came out, I really enjoyed the Astalos fight. I kept doing it over and over again. And I noticed that when I saw some people post videos on YouTube that my times are pretty comparable. So I tried to get faster and faster at that. I still wasn't very good. My time was pretty ass in the end. But I had a great time, and throughout base Sunbreak, I did the same thing basically. I'd see someone post a run, I think, can I beat that? And I try to do that. And since that person posting a run was usually yes, I could beat that. So yeah, that's how I sort of got really invested in speedrunning, and I just enjoy the process. It combines problem solving where you script the run out, you make your set, you analyze the monsters like sequences and patterns, you compare it to your own moveset and your options and how you could sort of interact with it, and the actual gameplay side of it where you have to respond to dynamic scenarios and execute. It's really interesting in that aspect, and I'm still doing it after almost 6,000 hours.
It started as a challenge to get under 4 minutes on level 300 Risen Valstrax. I was the third in a server of roughly 5,000 people to get it done. Years later now, we've got over a dozen people who have done it to the point where that's basically considered a casual time. From my experiences speedrunning, I learned many strategies that we can actually take into casual hunts to optimize those further. I'd say that speedrunning, has had a really big impact on how we hunt casually in our day-to-day hunts, and it's something that I love to see as we go forward.
And I think that's beautiful.